Hi everyone, it's Ross from House of Chaos Games, and today I'm going to be talking about green stuff. So this kind of stuff here, I mean, you can get it from most gaming places. You don't have to get it from Games Workshop. I find if you go for somewhere like Element Games, for example, you can buy a lot more. So this is about £10 worth. You can see I've already attacked the tube. They were both the same size. So there's quite a lot here, and I've used a lot already. So with green stuff, you can use it on a variety of different models. You can use it to make chainmail, you can make cloaks, tarpaulins, loincloths. You can, when you join two halves of a model together, you might find there's a little bit of irregularity, so you can squeeze a bit of green stuff in there and trim off the excess. So for example, a Space Marine bike, I'm halfway through here. You can see that on the back end of the bike, there's a lot of green stuff there, because the two halves of the bike didn't really want to set, so you can see it's still a little bit, I should apply possibly a bit more there. But once it goes off, you can sand it and you can work with it. Now you can't really sand it when it's still moist, when it's still manipulable. You can press tools into it to make different shapes, and you can make runes if you wanted to push it into some armor, for example. You can carve some runes into it. But once it goes off, can't do a lot other than sand it. So make sure you keep it moist. Just a little bit of water or a little bit of olive oil would be fine. And this stuff will stick to you, and it will stick to pretty much everything what you want it to stick to. So if you want to push it into a model, into a recess, make sure you've got a bit of water on your hands, a bit of olive oil, reduce the chances. So there's loads of things you can buy for green stuff. You can buy tools for green stuff. Now this was from a pound shop. So this was just 4 cake sculpting tools for £1, obviously, in the pound shop. What else is it going to be? So you've got things that can manipulate. I mean, that's not a scalpel blade, it's not that sharp, but you can manipulate green stuff, make some patterns at that end. The ball's quite useful if you wanted to make a series of interlinking recesses. That's how you make a chainmail, for example. And some weird and wonderful shapes. Now you can buy specific green stuff tools like these, but stainless steel, and they'll be 10 times the price easy. So, I mean, you can just use your hands if you want to, or just a hobby knife, but it's nice to have some tools, and as you know, you don't have to spend lots of money on the hobby. We try to keep it nice and cheap for you when we talk about our stuff. So there's some tools you can use to manipulate. Now with all green stuff, to mix it, it's pretty much the same. You know, it's a little bit of the blue, a little bit of the yellow. The blue is the hardener, but generally it's 50-50, you know, mix it up. So as long as there's no blue streaks or yellow streaks, you know it's good to go. So this is quite hard at the moment. It's been in a cold room, so I've got a bit on the go at the moment. So I'm manipulating it and rolling it about with my fingertips. And as you can see, there's no yellow or blue streaks in it, but you can see my lovely fingerprints. And you don't want fingerprints on a miniature, well, unless you're really aiming for that effect. So you can always wear gloves if you wanted to. Manipulating it so it doesn't leave any prints. Remember to keep your fingers, got a paint pot here full of water, put the water there, so I can keep it moist all the time I'm using it, so I can put detail into it and things like that, and it won't go off too quickly. So this stuff will stick to everything. But if you do want to leave patterns like that in whatever you're making, let's say you're making a sandbag, I recommend using elastoplasts, sticky plasters on your fingers. I mean, it may look funny, it may look like you've cut all your fingers, but when you manipulate, you can make a sandbag. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know, it's got to be square-ish, rounded at the edges. So for example, I could do that, but if I was wearing elastoplasts, that would give a nice texture, like a Hessian sack. Make 50 of those and make a little sandbag wall, or stick them on top of my Imperial Guard tank around the hatch. Look quite cool. So you make things like that. If you did want to make like a Hessian cloak, did the same kind of thing. So if you've got any, I don't know, medieval kind of characters that you wanted a cloak on, you can manipulate that. But one of the trickiest things to do with green stuff is roll it flat. So I'll make a nice round P of green stuff. I'll try to roll it flat. So this is a rolling pin. It's not a fancy gadget or anything. I don't use it for cooking, as you can see by the filthy handprints all over it. But if you try to roll out your piece of green stuff, nice and flat, lovely, isn't it? Lovely and smooth, ready to work with. Oh no, it's stuck to the desk. Yeah, that's what happens. So, how can you make a nice flat piece for, I don't know, cloak, loincloth, anything like that? It's proper stuck to that desk. Now, my lovely cloak looks like a mess, doesn't it? So, what we'll do is, zoom, is use a bit of this. Just regular old baking parchment. So I'll make my little ball again. And I got a Space Marine that's been painted a gazillion times, and I want to put a cloak on him. So I'll get a bit of water, keep it nice and moist, roll it into a lovely ball. Ish. Okay. Put it in the parchment. As you can see, it's not sticking, it's rolling around quite nicely. Right, and then I'm going to elongate the green stuff. Now there is different forms of modelling putty out there. So you've got your mill putt, which I find is a bit softer, a bit easier to work with. You've got grey stuff, which is pretty much the same. I think there is a few different other colours. But green stuff is quite popular, and you find it in most hobby stores. So I put rolling pin on the floor so it doesn't roll everywhere, and it should, hopefully, not be stuck. If it is, it's very, very slightly. Yes, it's good. It's not really stuck there at all. You'll see it's not stuck to the sheet. Wicked. And leaving it on the sheet, I can now cut it with a knife. So I'm just going to use a very basic knife, not a fancy craft knife. I'm just going to trim it a little bit there. So holding the piece you want to cut off, because you don't want to put horrible print on it or anything. Just trimming it lightly. So once again, you could use a little bit of olive oil because it's trying to stick to the knife, because green stuff sticks to everything. Which I will. A little bit of moisture. Now I want this cloak to be a bit rough, because Space Marine cloaks are always quite pristine. So I'm going to pick it up, measure it. That's about right for my Space Marine. You'll find it stuck to my finger because I didn't moisten it. So there we go. And then just gently work this around the Space Marine. That's about the right shape I want. So keep my fingers nice and moist. Drape it over his shoulders a little bit. And I'm going to put a couple of curves in it as well, because it's a flowing cloak. So I don't want to press too hard, because I want to keep some of the ripples of the cloak. Now I'm going to manipulate it with my £1 cake tools. There's not green stuff sculpted in. They're supposed to be cake tools. So I'm going to squeeze it together slightly to give it a bit of a curve to the material. So that's quite flowy. And now I want to tear it a little bit, so I'm going to put a little hole in it, just not all the way through, just to manipulate it slightly. I'm not happy with that, it's a bit too roughed up there, so I'm going to put in moisture. I always find all the Spaceman cloaks are a bit too pristine. Now, either their armour gets repaired, but surely the cloak gets shot to hell all the time. So why is the cloak always perfect? I want some bullet holes in it, damn it. Alright. So I'll put my nail underneath there so I can press against it. And you can smooth this stuff out quite nicely. So if there are any mistakes, you can play with it a bit. A bit of moisture, just smooth it a little bit. And just reshape. Okay, right. Flatten out the excessive wrinkle. Right, okay. I'm going to make it look like it's flapping around a little bit in the breeze. So that's my basic cloak. I mean, I can manipulate it and change it a bit more. Once it's gone off a bit hard, I'm going to drill a couple of little holes in the bottom so it looks like it's been shot or shot at. But that's the basic gist. I mean, that's how you make a cloak. You can manipulate it to what you want to look like. You can make a nice pristine, perfect one if you like. But the rest of his squad is all pristine. And I'm going to put a couple bullet holes in. Probably in his armour as well, because I'm a bit like that. Can't have anything too perfect. I mean, this is for 40k, 41st Millennium. You know, things are going to get shot. You know? You can manipulate that into there, smooth it off a bit. How you can even sand it when it goes off as well. I'm just going to smooth that in there just to show that he's got a shoulder pad underneath that. Okay, so reasonably happy with that. That's the general gist. So if you don't want green stuff sticking to something, use baking parchment. So this stuff is cheap as. You can get it in, you know, any supermarket. You can get it obviously in cooking stores. Where you can also get your very expensive, possibly £1 cake decorating tools. So you don't have to spend ridiculous money on it. The green stuff itself, I mean, this is probably about 10 quid for quite a lot. But you know, not a problem. So earlier on when I was suggesting that you can make mail, so same basic principle. So when you have your green stuff, start again, pencil stuff run out of ink. When you have your green stuff sheet, you can cut it nice and neat with a knife, for example. You can manipulate with a round tool, and that makes circles like that. So you can overlap and interlink the recesses. Sooner or later it will start looking like chainmail. So that's the basic gist. So imagine that several times over. Like that, for example. More like chainmail, isn't it? So you can make chainmail, you can fill in gaps with models, and you can make cloaks with green stuff. Possibilities are endless. So thank you very much for watching. Please leave a comment below and subscribe. Thank you very much.